Okay, I get it. You're confused. You've been staying up all night watching videos on YouTube, on Flat Earth, chemtrails, the Illuminati, the Federal Reserve System. Your mind is going a little haywire. You probably continue reaching for the thought that says, I don't believe it, even though you've seen quite a bit of evidence, perhaps to the contrary. Well, this video is going to help explain why there's that cognitive emotional dissonance, and it's pretty easy to explain as a matter of neuroscience. What our neuroscientists have been finding out is that even in the face of overwhelming logical, rational evidence and argument in support of a position, we won't take that position unless we have an emotional basis for it. That is, all of our decisions are made based on emotion. This is Dr. Antonio Damasio, a neuroscientist, author, researcher, and chair of neuroscience at the University of Southern California. Dr. Damasio had a patient named Elliot, a 30-something-year-old businessman with a loving family, a good job. Elliot was a smart guy and had a good life, until he got a brain tumor, and that brain tumor grew to be about the size of a small orange. After a successful surgery to remove the tumor, Elliot was still left without the ability to feel emotion. This was as a result of the tumor pressing against and damaging his frontal lobe. So while it was predictable with what was known at the time that Elliot would have no emotions, it was also thought that he would not have any real impact from the surgery in other aspects of his life. And yet, in every conceivable category, his life started to really degrade. His family relationships fell apart, he lost his job and couldn't keep one, and he spent all his savings on unreputable business investments. This prompted Dr. Damasio to do some research into the role that emotions play in the decision-making process. After many years of work, he and so many other scientists have established that it provides the feedback mechanism, the history of our decisions and how we've felt about them and how well we've done with them. Central to that process is a part of what used to be considered the stalk of the pineal gland, but is now called a different organ, the habenula. The habenula regulates dopamine and serotonin, and when we make decisions, the habenula is very active. While it has a hand in almost every brain function, the habenula primarily regulates the reward-punishment system. Let's say we're considering two options. As we bring up each option, the habenula accesses the history, the emotional history, of how you felt the last time you considered that. Whichever one has the better feeling is the one that wins. What happens later within our logical, cognitive parts of our brains is a justification of a choice already made. This is worth repeating, and I'll put it a little differently. When we consider an option, whether or not we think on it, our body is accessing the subconscious encoding of the last time that you had this thought or idea. So that gut feeling that you get is actually the brain going through its emotional decision-making process. The vast majority of decisions that people make, the vast majority, are done emotionally and subconsciously without any interference from your conscious mind. What happens in your conscious mind is just justification. Evidence of this everywhere. Do you have a friend who's in debt but still likes to shop? The decision to have one for the road. Any decision to drink alcohol, but maybe not tequila since maybe you threw up on it last time. Any kind of irrational preference, one towards drugs, especially nicotine. Nicotine has a really big effect on the habenula. Gambling. All advertisements work on this principle. We all know that boobs and beer have nothing to do with each other, but they put them together because the subconscious sucks. It doesn't discriminate against true or false. It just brings it in as the association. So whether or not you are thinking about it, you're making the decision emotionally based on whatever was encoded in your mind, subconscious, and body at that time. Now think about media. Think about what's portrayed and what we see there. I don't really think that there are that many sexist men who are making outright sexist decisions, and yet we have a huge disparity in terms of work position and work pay between men and women. Think about racial preferences in dating online, the disparity for black women and Asian men. Now, think about conspiracy. And when you do, you'll come to the realization that there's virtually no instance where conspiracy is brought up and it is not simultaneously ridiculed. The reason for this is that it exploits a little known fact about the brain, that social and emotional pain register in an identical fashion as physical pain. It's a hot stove experience. So, every time you're reading something, seeing something, hearing something, or a person is being ridiculed for being a conspiracy theorist, that's an instance of you being programmed by pain, you being shown what will happen to you if you dare think outside the lines. By setting a scene of social ridicule, it exploits an instinctual part of our neurology. It hijacks and runs over our ability or our desire to consider something on its merits. We're used to the idea that what's in our minds, our thought processes, our feelings, desires, shames, that's all private, our own. And it really should be. You see, the bully doesn't want to have to get into a fight every single time. The bully wants to use the memory of pain, discomfort, or social humiliation to remind you that he controls you. He owns you. And that's what's being done here. Our subconsciouses are being controlled in such a way that the bully wants. So let me ask you, are you going to think for yourself?